All right, so in 2025, I made it a goal to see as many movies in the theater as I possibly could. So I got one of those AMC movie passes and set out to go to the theater as much as I possibly could. And it looks like I'm ending this year with 75 movies that I saw in the theaters. So I thought it'd be really fun if I took all those movies, put them in a tier list, used my ranking system that I set up for the year to make it simple on myself, and we would sit here and rank all 75 of them. Now, to make this simple, I'm going to be using my ranking system that I set up for myself this year with great, good, fun, fine, bad, and last but not least, the garbage movies of the year. And to make this a little extra fun, everything I put in the great category, I will rank in order of my favorite movies. So it might be like a top 10 or top 15, but whatever goes in the great category, I will rank as my favorite movies of the year, with number one in this category being my all-time favorite of the year. So with all of that, let's get into it. All right, first up on the list is Chainsaw Man. Now, I'm actually not a big fan of the Chainsaw Man anime. I couldn't get through the first season, but my podcast co-host Kevin, who's sometimes on this channel, suggested that I go out and see Chainsaw Man. And honestly, I was kind of blown away by this one. It's gonna be in my top 10 this year, small spoiler alert. I really like this story. I think it's beautiful. I think it's well done. And my favorite thing about this movie, as someone who doesn't know anything about the Chainsaw Man mythos, that you can go into this and kind of just appreciate it for what it is. It kind of works as a standalone story by itself, and I think that really showed me how good and well made this arc was in this anime. And I'm a pretty big anime fan as it is, but this one just really blew me away this year. Next up is Now You See Me, Now You Don't 3 Me. Look, I've seen all of these movies and they're pretty over the top and not the best movies in the world, but I will say Now You 3 Me was at least fun. It has everything you want in one of those movies. You have over the top magic tricks and everyone is really good in it. I love Dave Franco. Woody Harrelson's funny. The addition of like Justice Smith and stuff were all really good. I think this is a fun movie. If you like the first two, I don't see how you wouldn't like this one. And if you thought they're at least fun or funny or so bad it's good, then I think this one's at least fun. Next up is Predator Badlands. Now look, I'm a big Predator fan. I love movies from the 80s. Predator is an incredible property, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, primarily because we got to see a Predator just do Predator shit instead of a bunch of military guys chase after the Predator and inevitably die one by one. So it was really nice to see something different. I get it's not for everybody, but for me, I honestly was having a great time. I went along for the ride. I actually saw this early in a pre-IMAX screening, and it was just really fun. I'm a big Predator fan, so I'm a little biased, but yeah, it was a pretty good movie, and I liked it a lot. Okay, next up is Keeper. Now, when it comes to Osgood Perkins, I feel like people either love his movies or love to hate his movies. Now, I personally really enjoyed Longlegs last year. I think it kind of does some interesting things that I personally really enjoyed. He also had another movie this year come out called The Monkey, which was a Stephen King adaptation. However, Keeper was awful. I did not like it at all. I thought it was boring. I thought the story felt really flat, and it left me with a lot of questions that I shouldn't have been asking after watching this movie. It was just ultimately very dull, in my opinion. Good premise, executed very poorly. Next up is FNAF 2. Now, I made a video about FNAF 1 because I've never played the FNAF games, but my partner asked me to watch a hour-and-a-half MatPat lore video, which actually got me interested in the FNAF universe. And the first one, look, I think the first one's pretty boring and it doesn't really deliver on a lot of stuff. I thought the second one was bad. I thought it was worse than the first one. I totally understand why some people might like this one, especially if you're fans. But for me, it just felt like it was treading water for something bigger. And my biggest complaint with it, and this is just a personal opinion, but not nearly enough of Matthew Lillard. I mean, come on. If you've got Matthew Lillard, you need to use him properly, in my opinion. All right, next up is Begonia. I really like this director a lot. He did Poor Things, which I think is a really interesting movie that kind of got a bad rap because of the premise of it. But once you watch it, you kind of see that's executed really well. Begonia, I had zero expectations for going into it, and I really liked this movie. I thought it did some really cool shit. I thought Jesse Plemons was incredible. I think the overall story is incredible. And I really, really, really love the ending. I know some people that might be where it lost them. But for me, Begonia was a surprise hit this year that really, really stood out to me. And it's definitely one of my favorites of the year. All right, next up is Him. Now, this has Jordan Peele's name attached to it. And look, holy crap, this movie is so bad. It is easily one of the worst movies I saw this year. This is the simple case of a movie that thinks it's doing a lot with its premise and thinks it's throwing things at you that you're gonna be like, oh my God, what is that? And it's really just nonsense, and it's all flat, and none of it really adds anything to the story. They're just shock and awe moments with no substance behind it. And personally, I don't like that. If you're gonna have a cool premise about like a cult football camp where you have to sacrifice people in order to become the best, you're gonna have to do more with it than just showing me a guy getting hit in the face with a football over and over again. Because that's just not gonna do it for me. All right, next up is Wicked for Good. Now, listen, last year, if I had done this list, the first Wicked would have been one of my favorite movies of the year. I'm not even a big fan of musicals, and I absolutely fucking loved the first Wicked. So I was pretty excited to see how they were going to wrap up this story. But I didn't like it. I thought it was really boring. I think it shows that when you split a musical that's only like 3 hours long into two and a half hour long movies, you really see the points where it drags. And this made it clear to me that the second act of Wicked might not be that good when you separate it from the first act, because not a lot happened in it. And it kind of left me wanting a lot more. Okay, next up is The Smashing Machine, a movie that was going to show us if The Rock was more than just a movie star and an action hero, if he could be an actor, if you will. And I think he did. I think he did a really good job in this movie. I was really, really surprised by his performance. I think the story has a really good message. Was it my favorite movie of the year? Absolutely not. But I do think this was a good, solid movie and a good, solid performance from The Rock. And I will be the first to admit, going into this movie, I wasn't sure if it was going to be that way. I was like, I don't know, it's The Rock. He did Red Notice. He did Red 1. There's not Red in the title of this movie. So is it even a movie for The Rock? It should be The Red Smashing Machine. But I think he did a really good job. And overall, I thought this was a really, really good story. Okay, next up is a little movie called The Wrecker, a movie that was in my theater for one day and one day only. And I can see why it was only in my theater for one day and one day only. This, small spoiler alert, is the worst movie I saw in the theater this year. This is the #1 crown king of garbage. It was fucking awful. It was the most low budget, poorly acted, nonsensical, terrible plot, stupid execution. What is this movie even trying to do? What's the point of this movie that I saw all year? And is it a little unfair because it is technically a low budget movie that just made it into theaters? Is it really fair for me to sit here and tear it apart? Yeah, absolutely, because there's another movie that I saw in theaters that's low budget and made it into theaters, and I didn't feel this way about it. So yeah, The Wrecker, easily worst movie of the year. All right, next up is the new Toxic Avenger with Peter Dinklage and even Frodo himself. Now, there was a rumor that this movie was considered unreleasable because it was so bad. That has since been debunked. I went to go see this movie on a couple gummies, and let me tell you, I don't know if it was the gummies. I don't know if it was because I like the original Toxic Avenger and I think it's campy and fun, but this movie is awesome. If, and there's a big caveat here, if you like those kinds of movies, the way I would kind of compare it is if you like the Naked Gun, Airplane type movies where it's very on the nose and very aware of the humor and the comedy and the story that it's doing, then I think the Toxic Avenger is that, but more in line with superhero-esque movies, because it's very stupid. I'll sit here and tell you right now, it's very stupid, and it's very over the top. It's very gruesome. It's very gory in some ways. It makes you a little uncomfortable in some ways, but boy howdy did I have a great fucking time with this movie in the theaters. All right, next up is Zootopia 2. Now, I am a big fan of the original Zootopia, so I was a little skeptical about making a sequel this far away from the original one coming out. And lately, with movies like Moana 2, I've been a little worried about Disney taking a good movie and trying to make a sequel out of it. But surprisingly, I think Zootopia 2 is better than the first one, which is not something I thought I would say, but it actually has a message that makes a lot of sense. I think the message hits close to home, it has some good twists, and it's just really fun to revisit this world that was set up and really cool and clever and learn more about Zootopia and the main characters and just kind of see what's up in this world. And I really enjoyed it. It was just a really fun time. I was surprisingly, I was in a theater full of kids and it seemed like everybody was having a great time. And it's just, I don't know, it's just like very heartwarming. And it's just, I'm a big fan of the original Zootopia. So this one, I truly think might actually be better than, not might, it is better than the first one. Next up, speaking of sequels, is The Accountant 2. Now, I saw the first Accountant way back when and thought, hey, this is pretty cool. I like this. I like Ben Affleck. I like John Bernthal. This is pretty good. I thought this one was fun. I mean, you could probably make a case to put it in the good category. I love John Bernthal. I'm weirdly a big fan of Ben Affleck lately in these kind of roles where he does more action stuff. I do think that this movie dips into autism as a superpower, which is not my favorite thing to see depicted in movies when it's just like, hey, because you have autism, now you're really good at everything. And the way they portray it just kind of leaves a weird taste in your mouth. But I thought that the pairing of these two and the comedy behind one not really understanding how to read social cues and the other one just wanting to have like a normal relationship with his brother and how that unfolds around this like kind of interesting action plot that actually has some pretty good action and some tense moments, I thought overall really, really fun. Next up, The Running Man. This might be the biggest bomb of 2025, which is kind of insane because it's good. It's not quite great for me because the message is a little too on the nose and a little bit too relatable to what's going on in the world. But I thought taking the original source material of The Running Man, and I've actually covered the original Running Man movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and my biggest complaint with that is that The Running Man takes place over the course of different cities in America in the Northeast, and this Running Man from Edgar Wright actually does that. It does change some things from the book still, and I'm a big fan of the original book, but I thought Glenn Powell did a great job. It was awesome to see Josh Brolin in this. I think Michael Cera's role is really fun, and honestly, it's just a really good, fun movie that I think has some good action, has a good message, and it's Edgar Wright. So if you like the Cornetto trilogy and whatnot with like Shaun of the Dead and stuff, I think The Running Man is a cool change of pace for Edgar Wright, and I think he stuck the landing pretty well. I had a good time with this one. A movie I did not have a good time with, and people disagree because I made a mini review on it, Tron Ares. Now look, I understand why people liked this movie. Me personally, I couldn't get past Jared Leto. And is that fair to judge a movie based off the movie star and the allegations in real life against him? Yeah, I think it's fair. Also, I just didn't think that this movie did anything interesting and didn't build in the ways that I personally was hoping to see after Tron Legacy. I think not bringing back those original characters from Tron Legacy and just having them be written off in an opening, being like, yeah, they retired and disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to them. I hate that in movies. I hate when a character who was established in the previous movie just gets a one-line write-off so we can focus on Jared Leto and his bullshit. Look, if you like this movie, I totally get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't like it if you do, but for me personally, I can't get past Jared Leto. I'll never be able to get past Jared Leto. I think he sucks. I think he's a terrible human being, and I think this movie was just boring. Does it deserve to be in garbage? No, it probably should be in bad. I'll put it in bad because it's not garbage. It's not the worst movie ever. It's definitely not on line with those three, but Jared Leto really makes me want to put it there, but I'll be nice. I'll put it in bad instead. All right, next up is a French animated movie called Little Amelie or The Character of Rain. Now listen, this was only in theaters for a couple days. I think it was one weekend, and I was able to go see it. And I got to be honest, this was one of the best movies I saw this year. I literally have not been able to stop talking about this movie to people in my personal life. It is beautifully animated. It has a gorgeous story. It is so heartwarming and heartfelt. It's a masterpiece of storytelling. And the plot is so simple. It's just about a little girl and she turns 3 and she starts seeing the world for the first time through her eyes. And it's just like, what is it like to grow up? What is it like to lose that sense of, purity and innocence when you're younger and seeing the world for what it really is and what it can really throw at you? And it's just, dude, I literally can't stop talking about this movie. It's available to rent on Amazon Prime here in the US. And if you like animated movies and you like, I don't want to compare it to Studio Ghibli because it's not really the same, but I think that's the closest comparison I can think of making this video. It's a fucking masterpiece. It's oh my God, it's one of my favorite movies this year, and I know I was so surprised. I was so surprised by it. I can literally make a whole video about why this movie is as incredible as it is. Next up, another Stephen King movie, The Long Walk, which is essentially, the best I can compare it to for modern audiences is what if Hunger Games, but you volunteered and you just walked until you couldn't anymore, and then when you couldn't walk, you got shot in the head. I thought this movie was pretty good. I think it has some really good themes. I think it changes the book ending in a way that I personally really liked. I've never read the book, but I think that what I read about the ending and how they changed it, I liked. Mark Hamill seems to be having a great time in it. And it just has some really good character-driven moments because it's just watching a bunch of teenagers walk until they die. And watching that unfold, I was really surprised by it because I had no intention of seeing this originally, decided to, and honestly, it's pretty good. Next up is Dave Bautista. Now, I made a video about Dave Bautista on my channel not too long ago because he did a movie called Afterburn this year. Now, I didn't see Afterburn in theaters, so that's why it's not on this list, but I did make a video about it. And in that video, I talk about how it seems like Dave Bautista is making a lot of bad movies lately. He had 3 this year. Trap House is one of them, In the Lost Lands, and then Afterburn. And they were all bad. They were all bad. This also has the kid that plays Spider in the Avatar movies. He's a bad actor in this movie, in my opinion, but it also has Dave Bautista, who I think is a good actor. And he also has Sophia Lillis, who's from the It movies, and I think she's a good actress. But this movie, it's just bad. It didn't do anything interesting, didn't grab my attention. I kept waiting for it to be a little bit more fun, but it just never got there for me. Oh, and next up is a movie called King Ivory, which I actually saw this back to back with Trap House. Now, King Ivory has a pretty interesting premise about drugs in Oklahoma City, has some really good actors in it. The main character was a villain. The actor played a villain in another movie I liked this year called Violent Ends. But this movie was just really boring, and it doesn't really expand in any ways that I thought made the story engaging. There's characters that just kind of do nothing the entire time, and you wait for them to be important, and then they're not, and the main character just kind of floats through the storyline. And I think that this could have been interesting and done a little bit better, but ultimately it just fell really flat for me. Next up, Caught Stealing. Look, this movie was good. I really liked Austin Butler in it. It made me finally like him as an actor. I think Matt Smith is a criminally underrated and underused actor in Hollywood because he's fucking amazing. This whole movie, it's sold as like a 90s fun heist movie. But just if you're interested in this and you haven't seen it yet, it's sad. It's a lot of people getting hit in the head and a lot of other people dying, and it's a sad movie, but I think it's still good, if that makes sense. Next up is a little hidden gem this year that I don't think a lot of people saw with Rainn Wilson called Code 3. Now, little peek behind the curtain for me in my personal life. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to EMT school because I thought, hey, I'm going to be a paramedic. I really want to save lives. I made it through school, and then when I got the job offer, I realized I literally couldn't afford to live with $11 an hour at the time. So I had to take a job doing something else, and this dream quickly faded. I liked this movie a lot. I think the message is really good. I think it highlights the issue with pay when it comes to the EMT and paramedic field, something that I don't think is talked about nearly enough. I think it highlights what these people go through. And if you're going to make a movie showing everyday people being heroes, adding a little comedy to it like Code 3 does, but also making sure that the serious moments land and that you make sure that you see those serious moments and the severity of what these people go through on a day-to-day basis. I think Code 3 is a secret gem this year that I would encourage more people to definitely go and check out. Comedy might not be for everybody, the message might not be for everybody, but as somebody who went to school and wanted to do this, I really, really, really enjoyed this telling of it. Next up is Sisu 2, Road to Revenge. This movie's fun. I mean, it's John Wick, World War II style. A guy that definitely should have died plenty of times over, but somehow is still kicking. It's just, if you haven't seen the first one, I believe it's on like Disney Plus or something. It's really fun. I think the first one is better. I think this one does some really extreme stuff that you're like, no, that's not possible. But honestly, you got to turn your brain off for these fun movies in order to enjoy them. If you can turn your brain off and see a guy just kind of fuck up some bad people post World War II, because this one's set in 1946, I think you'll like this one a little bit. I definitely think you should see the first one first, because I was surprised how much it tied in to the first one. But overall, really fun movie. Next up, we have The Amateur with Rami Malek. It was fine. I don't think this one does anything special in the espionage. Guy works for a government agency like the CIA, FBI, NSA kind of thing. His wife is killed, so he uses his skills to go track him down. It's very Jason Bourne-esque. It's very Black Bag-esque in a lot of ways. But I don't think it does anything different in that realm. I think it's trying to compete with like the Bourne franchise and Black Bag and whatnot, but I don't think it can, because it's really just, it's fine. I mean, that's all I can say. It's fine. A movie that's not fine, Until Dawn. This movie sucked. I've never played the video games, but I know a little bit about them. If your premise of the movie is, hey, you're trapped in this place and every night monsters and like weird, crazy things come out to try to kill you and you're stuck in a time loop like Groundhog Day, the last thing I want you to do in your movie is show me like the first 2 nights and then be like, okay, here's everything else that happened and we're going to show you on somebody's phone because we filmed 5-second clips of every other night. I'm not joking. Spoiler alert for all these movies, really. Until Dawn just skips all of the fun stuff and shows you all the other like 13 nights that you could have witnessed playing out in front of you on a iPhone. It sucks. This movie, and even if you're a fan of the game, I'd be curious to know what you think of this, because as far as I can tell, this is nothing like the game. It seems to be only a name and execution of the nights and things trying to kill you alone. But overall, this was not good. I did not like this movie. Next up, another kind of like hidden gem, Bring Them Down with Barry Keoghan. I thought this movie was good. I actually really enjoyed this. I love these little like indie drama, secluded stories that, you know, it's kind of like low stakes but high execution. I'm a big fan of character-driven stories, and there was a lot of good ones this year where it's more about the choices people make and understanding why they're in the situations they are, and kind of just like really focusing in on that rather than them saving the world or having to run across town to stop a bomb going off. Or it reminded me a lot of the Banshees of Inisherin. Kind of had that vibe to it, and I don't know. It was really good. Loved it a lot. A good movie this year. Okay, next up is the big budget F1 movie. Now, I was extremely excited for this movie to come out this year. I am a big fan of racing. F1's always been interesting. I'm a big Brad Pitt fan. I'm a big Javier Bardem fan. I loved this movie. I saw it 3 times in IMAX because my AMC pass allowed me to get IMAX passes for no extra charge, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I love everything about this movie. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the character arcs. I love the racing scenes. I love the cinematography. I love the writing. I love the directing. I love this movie. It is, spoiler, this is my favorite movie of the year. Hands down. I loved it a lot. It's not for everybody. Some people probably didn't like it. That's fine. For me, it really stood out to me as one of the best movies for me of the year. And I really love the way that Sonny Hayes, Brad Pitt's character's story ends. I think it's very fitting. And it was just a great time from start to finish for me. Okay, next up is Sinners. This is another great movie. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see Ryan Coogler do something other than the Black Panther movies. Michael B. Jordan playing 2 different characters, and the way they interact on screen was really, really good. I think the story is really well executed. I think the ending for some people was a letdown. Personally, I like the shootout ending because my 2 brain cells do love some good action scenes, and it's really fun to see Michael B. Jordan with his giant arm shooting a Tommy gun. Like, I mean, that's what more could you want for it? I think the vampires in it are really well done. Overall, I just had a really good time with this one, and it was one of my favorites of the year. It was also one that I was really looking forward to. So it was nice to see that the execution really paid off. Next up is Freakier Friday. This movie was fun. I like the first one. I think it's fine. I think this one did some really fun and creative stuff. It was fun to see Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. I think the inclusion of their daughters and whoever played their daughters, they did a great fucking job. I think they brought back original characters really well. I think that the plot made sense. And I think that the switching of bodies wasn't just like, oh, we don't appreciate each other anymore, so we're going to switch bodies again. I actually think it had some pretty cool ideas behind why they switched bodies and the reason behind it. And it's just a fun family movie. I mean, I think it's not the best. I don't know if I would even consider putting it in good, but I think this is like the true definition of a fun movie this year. Another really fun movie was Good Fortune. I liked this one. I would almost put it in good, but I gotta be honest, Aziz Ansari, not my favorite actor. It's hard to like take his character seriously in this movie because he's just playing Aziz Ansari. But Keanu Reeves, Keke Palmer, and Seth Rogen all did a phenomenal job in this movie. I think that the story about a guardian angel who wants to do something more than just save people from texting and driving, and he interferes with a like billionaire's life or a multimillionaire life, and this guy who's living out of his car makes them switch places, and how that unfolds. I thought overall it was really fun, and I had a good time in it. Then we have Materialist. What if Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal all wanted to find love in New York City? Look, I'll be honest, I thought this one was fine. I originally had it in my good category this year, but the more I thought about it and the idea of a matchmaker and like her grubby ex-boyfriend and this rich guy who is handsome and has everything, I thought it was fine. I think that it's played out pretty well. I think it's very Will Smith, Kevin James coded for Hitch, just not quite the same beats as that one. And I think it's a little too sad for me, and I think that it's kind of misleading a little bit in how it plays out because it didn't really go the way I thought it was. And that's not me saying because it wasn't what I wanted it to be, I didn't like it more. I think at the end of the day, it was just a movie that was fine for me. Next up, we have the live action Lilo and Stitch. Now, I am the right age that the original Lilo and Stitch is a masterpiece. You're not going to get much better than that. I didn't like this movie. I thought it was really bad because they changed a lot of things from the original. Like, how are you not going to have fucking Gantu in this movie at all? He's a pivotal part in the original movie. He's like a pivotal part. How are you not going to have him in this? And I think they were cowards not to have Pleakley and Jumba, wear actual disguises. Instead, they just have holograms that make them look like Zach Galifianakis and Billy Magnussen. And don't get me wrong, I love Billy Magnussen. I think he's a great Pleakley. He's my favorite part of this movie and the only thing I liked. But honestly, I think they changed way too much. And like the Disney live action curse, I don't think it worked. I can understand why kids that have never seen the original like this one. But for me, bad. Didn't like it. Big year for Pedro Pascal because we also have the Eddington movie. I thought this was good. An interesting period piece. And by period, I mean it's set in 2020 to the backdrop of COVID in a small town where a mayor and a sheriff butt heads over how to handle the COVID pandemic. And to the backdrop of that, you also have this other subplot that I'm not going to spoil too much because I think this is one of those that you really need to watch if you're interested in it. But the subplot that plays out in the background, I thought was really well done. I think it's a very tense movie that is almost hard to watch in a lot of ways, but in a good way as well. Like it's too real because the pandemic, it was only 5 years ago that it started roughly, or yeah, I guess a little over 5 years at this point. And, for a lot of people that went through that pandemic, that's not something we want to be reminded of because it sucked. So I think this movie does a good job at making you uncomfortable in the right ways. And then for superhero movies, first up, we got Thunderbolts. I thought this movie was good. I kind of liked that it wasn't just big laser in the sky and they need to team up to stop it. I thought the message of mental health was really beautifully done, in my opinion. I really like this cast too. Wyatt Russell, Sebastian Stan, David Harbour, Florence Pugh. I really liked everybody in this. I think there are some things that could have definitely been better. Like I said, spoiler alert, but Taskmaster just like getting shot in the head and it being like brushed over, I thought was a really weird choice, especially when the director came out and was like, well, we did that so you would think that nobody was safe in this movie. But there was never a point moving forward after Taskmaster was shot in the head that I thought anybody was going to die or anybody was at risk of not making it out alive. So I think that didn't quite work the way they wanted. But in terms of superhero movies, I think this was a nice change of pace, and personally, I kind of enjoyed it. Next up is The Weeknd's Vanity Project with Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan. Hurry Up Tomorrow fucking sucks. This is a great definition, a great movie to study for all bang, no substance, all flair, no chew, all whatever you want to analogy, insert analogy here. This is just a 90-minute fever dream, just makes no fucking sense. The plot is stupid, the characters are stupid, the way it's executed is stupid. I was sighing out loud in my empty theater throughout this entire movie. What was the point of this movie? I couldn't tell you. Another great movie this year was One Battle After Another. I loved this movie. I love Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I love Benicio del Toro. I really honestly was not going to even see this movie. I was going to skip it in theaters and wait for streaming. I'm really glad I saw it in theaters because it was honestly kind of a masterpiece. Easily one of my favorite movies this year, as you'll see where it ends up on my great tier list in my tops. For having zero expectations for this movie, same with Begonia, I was just absolutely blown away, edge of my seat, loved every second of it, thought it was really well executed, and honestly, the villain in this movie was just very, very well done, very well written, and I loved his motivations in the sense of he's a lunatic, and we love a good lunatic that gets their comeuppance at the end. And then we have Mickey 17. I thought this movie was good. I am a big Robert Pattinson fan post the Twilight era because I've never really seen the Twilight movies. I've only seen the first three. I've seen the first three Twilight movies like 3 times each. I've never been able to get through that franchise, but one day I plan to cover it on this channel. But I think Robert Pattinson's fantastic in Mickey 17. I think it's good. I think it's fun and kind of funny, a little quirky. I think that the studio was hoping for another Parasite, but I don't think you're going to be able to replicate Parasite because the themes and messaging in Parasite aren't on the nose as Mickey 17. Mickey 17 likes to remind you about every 20 minutes in the movie what it's about and the like real life parallels to it, and that kind of brings it down a little bit, but ultimately I still had a really good time with it and thought it was really good. And speaking of fun movies, the new Naked Gun this year I thought was really fun. My favorite moment in this movie is when Liam Neeson keeps getting handed coffee cups, and each time he's handed a coffee cup, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I think if you like this style of humor, again, kind of similar to Airplane, Toxic Avenger, the original Naked Gun, and so forth, I think that this is a great modern adaptation of that style of humor. I think it does a really good job of capturing the spirit of the original one and being just different enough that it leaves some room for some new things to come in, but ultimately it is a lot like the originals with the humor and the comedy and the jokes. But I mean, that's kind of what I personally wanted when I went into this, and I think it delivered all the way around. Next up, from the world of John Wick, we have Ballerina. I thought it was fine. I didn't love it. I don't know what it was about this one, but it just didn't quite tickle my fancy, if you will. I think the action is solid, but I think the plot and the execution just felt very John Wick. And I think that even the John Wick movies are kind of overstaying their welcome because there's only so much you can do with this secret society of people that have hotels and currency, and they put out hits on people and stuff. But overall, I thought it was just simply fine. Speaking of movies that are simply fine, Mission Impossible. I don't know what it is about this franchise, but I think it went from really like kind of hard to get behind beginnings in some ways to a good peak with 3 through like 6. But this final storyline of everything kind of feeling forced together with connecting all of the movies and all the characters and all the plot devices, all to take down a rogue AI whose secrets lie in a submerged submarine and yada yada. I don't know. The overall plot, like, I don't really want to see Tom Cruise run around to fight an AI. And also the way they used the big baddie that they set up in the previous one just felt like he was completely wasted. And there were just a lot of things in this that I just didn't feel landed. And maybe that's because it's been a while since I saw the last one. But I think for almost a 3-hour long movie, there were so many moments when I was like, we could move this along a little faster. And I get like the draw to Mission Impossible. It's all real life stunts. It's all done for real. But I just think that overall wasn't nearly the best Mission Impossible it wasn't the end to this franchise that I think we deserved. Then we have Nobody 2, which is another John Wick-esque kind of movie with Bob Odenkirk. The original Nobody is really fun. I think this one is a good follow-up. I think it's also fun. I think it's fun to see Bob Odenkirk just kind of be an action hero with his sense of humor that he has. And overall, if you like the John Wick X movies and these kind of, action old man stories, I think Nobody 2 and Nobody 1 both do a really good job of not just being a beat for beat old man action movie. There's actually some stuff in this one that I think plays out really well, and there's some characters that actually have a little bit of development, and the plot is more than just, you kicked my dog, now I'm gonna kill you. Which, granted, I mean, the first John Wick is awesome, and I can totally relate. If somebody kicked my dog, I would go on a shooting spree myself. But I think Nobody 2, specifically Nobody 2, was just really fun this year. A movie that is not fun this year, Jurassic World Rebirth. What a waste of a movie, in my opinion. Gareth Edwards, I love him as a director. I love the first Godzilla. I love his movie Monsters. I love his movie The Creator. I think he's a phenomenal director who can do these kinds of properties really well. However, Jurassic World Rebirth went, hey, you remember everything from like the last, 6 movies and how dinosaurs were in the real world now and they're not just on an island? Yeah, no, they're all dead, and we're going to go back to an island, another secret island where there's a giant T-Rex monster hybrid looking thing. We're barely going to show you that. And instead, we're going to have like 5 people walk around with not nearly enough cannon fodder and not nearly enough dino action to satisfy anybody. And yet somehow this movie still made like $1 billion. I think this is one of the most boring dinosaur movies I've seen in the last like 2 decades. I'm not the biggest Jurassic World fan, but I think that this is a slap in the face for what those other 3 movies were doing. Granted, those ones fall off pretty hard too. This was not good. I just did not like it at all. And then next up, we have Sacramento. I thought this movie was pretty good. I like to see just a story about 2 friends reconnecting in different points of their life. One has a kid, about to have a kid, and he's freaking out about it. And the other one has a kid and he's not in their life because he ran away because he was scared of what that might look like. And now this whole story is him taking his emotional support best friend, who he hasn't seen in years and doesn't really want to be his friend, on this unwanted and unexpected journey to try to figure out what all of this means. And I think it's just another like little fun movie that plays out really well. And I think it has a kind of a beautiful story. It's well acted. I think it's a good outing, and it's a good feel good movie by the end of the day. Then we got 28 Years Later, the much anticipated 3rd movie in the 28 Days, 28 Weeks Later franchise. I like this one a lot. It definitely goes somewhere up here for me. I think probably right about there as of right now. I think it's really well done. I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. I like the continuation of the world. I like that they finally say pretty much outright, hey, the rest of the world is fine. It's just you guys that are behind a quarantine. And since you guys are bad at this quarantine thing, no, you're not allowed to leave ever. And I think that they're building to a really cool trilogy. We get the next one here soon, and then they actually just greenlit the 3rd one. So Cillian Murphy's coming back. I think that this is just Danny Boyle really knows what he's doing with this. I understand that some people thought the ending was a little silly and over the top and obscure, but personally, that's just seems to be something I like this year with things like Begonia and Sinners and 28 Years Later. I just think that like these silly out of right field endings, they're just really working for me this year. Next up, a movie that I would consider highly controversial because I think you either love this new Superman movie or you think it's garbage for whatever reason. Maybe you're still a big fan of the Snyderverse and you want Superman to snap Zod's neck, and maybe you want Superman to not be punk rock. Maybe you don't want Superman to care about people, because that's what this movie does. They make Superman care about people. And I like that. I like that Superman cares about people. I like his scene with Lois Lane, where when she's grilling him, he says that people are going to die, and that's why he did what he did. It was nice to see a Superman who is nice. I'm not the biggest fan of the Snyderverse. I'll be the first to admit that. Do I think that this is like a perfect movie? No, it's only in my great category because I had a lot more fun with it than I was expecting. Is it very James Gunn-esque? Absolutely. But for me, it was a lot of the side characters that made me love this movie. I loved Jimmy Olsen in it. I loved Guy Gardner in it. I loved Hawk Girl and her crazy, weird screams. I loved Mr. Terrific. He was easily my favorite part in this movie. I think it's just a pretty good, like, feel-good superhero movie. I think for me, it was my favorite superhero movie of the year. And then we had some live-action remakes that continue the trend with How to Train Your Dragon. I thought this was good. I like the original How to Train Your Dragon. I think they casted it pretty well. It was nice to see Jerry B come back as Hiccup's dad in live action. I think he did a good job. I think, again, this is one of those that kind of falls into the, hey, we're just going to make it pretty much beat for beat as the animated. I mean, they even got the same director as the animated one. I think it's a good movie. I think that it's not necessary. I think that you could say that about a lot of live action remakes. But, you know, I mean, we're going to get a trilogy of live action. I think Mason Thames did a good job, and, you know, we'll see if it continues the trend. But overall, I thought it was at the very least a good movie. And speaking of live action Disney remakes, Snow White, best movie of the year. Just kidding, it sucked. I didn't like it. Gal Gadot's a bad actress, by the way. She's not good in this movie at all. I do think Rachel Zegler is getting a bit of unnecessary hate for her performance in this movie. I'm not saying it's a good performance by any stretch, but I think people are crossing the line of her cringy press tour for this movie and how she said it was going to be different and it's weird, and how like the main guy character might get all of his scenes cut. And like, I just don't think she's very good at doing press, but she's also like 21 years old when she was doing this. So, I mean, she's kind of still a kid and young, but I just think that it's not a good movie. I think the Seven Dwarfs were really weird and not done right. I think that the effects are awful. I think that the music isn't nearly as good as other Disney movies in the live action realm at all. And I think that the story of Snow White is just boring to me. I've never been a big fan of Snow White, so that also plays a part in me not liking it. But I think ultimately it's just a poorly directed, poorly written, poorly acted, and poorly executed movie. And for that reason, for having the budget that it did, it's just bad. And that's the same reason with Jurassic World. These are only down here on my list because with the creative team and the budget behind it, they should have been so much better, but instead they were fucking awful. But then we have the movie Weapons. And I think this is a fantastic movie. I don't have much to say about it. I didn't know what I was going to expect going into this. I think it has an incredible cast. I love the premise. And keeping with that trend of weirdest shit endings to a movie, big spoiler alert for Weapons, but I gotta talk about this. Having all of the possessed kids snap back to reality, chase an old lady through people's yards and houses, and then literally rip her limb from limb was just fucking amazing. I loved that ending, because how do you end a movie like this that has built up all this tension and like these jump scares and this incredible plot, in my opinion, that's like really well executed? How do you end that? Well, she just gets ripped apart on somebody's lawn by a bunch of preteens. And overall, I think it's a really good movie, and I loved every second of it. I saw it twice in theaters. Big fan. Really liked it a lot. But then you have the Minecraft movie. Look, I can make a case for this going in garbage and bad and fine and fun. I think this movie is, depending on how you want to look at it, whether you're like, well, it's a kid's movie, so it's meant for kids, so you can't really judge it. Or if you're just like, well, I love the memes. I think it's bad. I think it's really bad. I think Jack Black and Jason Momoa are fun in this movie, but I think as a movie, it's bad. I think it's just a meme at this point, and I think it's just been memed to death. But also, if you're one of the people that saw this in the theater and threw your popcorn everywhere, I would be furious if I was sitting next to somebody and I got showered in unwanted, buttery, grubby popcorn that you've been picking at with your dirty little fingers that have been in your mouth. Absolutely not. If you were rude to people in the theater and caused disruptions like all those videos that I saw online, you're a bad person and this is a bad movie. Have some theater etiquette, you grubby little finger-picking popcorn goblin. I'm trying to be nice with my insult, but no, you're a bad person if you caused issues in the theater with this movie. And it's just not, I mean, like, it's fun, and like there's moments in this movie that are funny, but I mean, it's just not a good movie. A recent one that came out, Anaconda. Now, this is still pretty fresh in my mind. I think this is fun. I've seen the original Anaconda, and that movie is like, it's probably a so bad it's good contestant, in my opinion. But I think Jack Black and Paul Rudd absolutely crushed it with this meta comedy movie about friends going to make a movie and running into the real anaconda. There's some good cameos. There's some good jokes. I think that this is another one similar to like Naked Gun and Freakier Friday. Don't think about it too hard. Just go in, enjoy it, get the laughs, get the jokes, call it a day. You'll be fine. I think it's ultimately a fun and funny movie. And that's the same case with Death of a Unicorn. I thought this was another one. I saw a lot of people kind of tear it apart. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really nice to see Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd team up. I think that the premise of these magical unicorns and their horns are like the cure to diseases and cancer and everything. And this greedy pharmaceutical, like a medical company wants to harness it. And then, what happens if the mama and papa unicorn show up and start skewering people with their horns? The answer is a 90-minute, pretty fun and funny movie that I think is really well acted. And is it good? Probably not. Is it bad? Yeah, probably. But at least it's fun. And I think that's good enough for me. What wasn't good enough for me was The Wolfman. Now, I was a big fan of the Invisible Man modern adaptation. I thought it was really well done. I thought Wolfman was bad. I almost want to put it in garbage. I didn't enjoy this. I think it didn't do anything nearly interesting enough to keep me captivated by it. I think that the execution of the Wolfman, there's some really good moments when the guy is turning, where you get like some really cool sound design and you kind of see his vision blur and people's voices get distorted. And I think that stuff is really interesting and cool. But I think that the overall like arc and premise and the story and how it unfolds just didn't really do it for me. And it's also a heavy-handed message about generational trauma, which I think is a great message to put in a movie. Just maybe put it in a better movie or just do a better job. But that's just my opinion. So if you like this one, I get it. But for me, just didn't quite do it. Another one that didn't just quite do it was Captain America: Brave New Bird. This is bad. I mean, I feel like Marvel, and I'm sure a lot of people have said this, and I'm not saying that Marvel was the worst and it's terrible now, but it's really hard to get excited for Marvel properties when it doesn't feel like it has the same kind of connection or build up or even like remotely close to how we built up to Infinity War and Endgame. Not saying that everything needs to be connected and I don't need to see every Marvel character show up in every Marvel movie, but we had a show about Sam Wilson and Bucky and all about him becoming Captain America. And at the end of that, he was Captain America. But then this one starts up and it's like, well, maybe I'm not Captain America. Maybe I shouldn't be Captain America. And it's just like, Marvel, figure out what you're doing with these characters. Because it's hard for me to be invested in a Birdman when it just doesn't feel like you know what you're doing with any of them. And I want more. I personally really liked how everything was a little connected leading up to Infinity War and Endgame. It made a lot of those stories and the stakes feel higher. But we have Doomsday coming out, and the only Marvel movie left to come out before Doomsday is another Spider-Man movie. And Doctor Doom is a Fantastic Four villain for the most part, and he wasn't even introduced in the Fantastic Four movie, unless you consider that really terrible AI deepfake, which looks like shit and is stupid. And if you fell for it, I'm sorry, because it's not true, and he's not in that movie, and he should have been, and it's bad, and this movie was bad, and I didn't like it. We also got a cool little like history movie called The Last Breath. I thought this movie was fine. I think the true story is really, really interesting. I listened to a podcast called Do Go On, and they do historical, like, little reports from history. That's what historical means. Duh. But either way, they're three Australian comedians, so they make the reports kind of fun and they keep it lighthearted, especially when they cover like more serious topics. The true story of this movie is really cool. I think it's a really like heroic and captivating story. And I think because I already knew the story going in, the movie doesn't have as big of a punch as I was expecting because I kind of knew where it was going. But overall, I think the movie's executed fairly well. Just don't know anything about it going in, and maybe you'll enjoy it a little bit more. But ultimately, I think it's just a fine historical telling of this heroic, story. This is a movie I completely forgot I saw. Looney Tunes, The Day the Earth Blew Up, is fine. I'm not a big Looney Tunes fan. I didn't grow up watching the Looney Tunes. It's Daffy Duck and Porky Pig trying to save the world from aliens. If you like Looney Tunes, if your kids like Looney Tunes, if you like these kind of movies, I think you'll enjoy it. For me, honestly, until I was putting this list of all of my movie posters together, I forgot I even saw it. But I did, and it was fine. Next up, we have One of Them Days, a comedy this year that I think actually landed pretty well. I would put this actually all the way up in good, because I really had a good time with it. I think it's really funny. I think Keke Palmer's really funny. SZA was really funny in this movie as well. The story is pretty basic and simple about two friends that need to get some money by the end of the day. And what does that adventure look like when things keep going wrong and nothing is going the way they want? It has that like mid-2000s comedy feel, kind of like a throwback to those movies. And I think that it's just executed really well. And overall, I just found myself having a good time. I was laughing out loud in the theater, which, that's always a good sign. If you're laughing out loud in the theater at a movie, I think that shows you that it's fun. I think that overall this is good and just a step above being just fun for me, because it's one that I would definitely watch again. And again, I just think that the jokes really land in it. Okay, this is going to be the most controversial one on my list. This is Avatar 3, or as I like to call it, Avatar Farts and Ass. I don't like the Avatar movies. I'm not a fan. I think the first one is fine. I think the second one is fine. I think this third one didn't do nearly enough with the plot of the movie. Now, I understand a lot of people like these movies and really enjoy them. I think that the visuals are stunning. I even said when I came out of this theater to myself, I was like, wow, that was probably the best looking movie I've seen this entire year, because it looks incredible. I will not take away from the visuals and the groundbreaking technology that James Cameron made in order to create these movies. However, the story and the characters are not interesting enough for me. To me, they all fall very flat. Another thing that I had a problem with in this movie is it feels like they just repeated a lot of the bits from the first and the second one and didn't do anything interesting with them. I also think James Cameron needs to learn how to kill villains and let them stay dead, because this whole arc with Quaritch dying in the first one, comes back in the second one. Okay, that's interesting. But then he's saved at the end of the second one just to be the same villain he was in the first and second in this one. And you might be like, well, that's the whole point of his character. He's saved, but he's still bad. Yeah, and that's fine, but I would rather have just focused maybe on a different villain, or maybe he's no longer a villain. The characters and the story and the way it plays out are just almost too simple for me to really be able to get behind, because there's just a lot of things that I'm like, that's not an interesting bit of the story. But again, visually, I think it's great. And if you like these movies, I totally understand why. But again, for me, I've never been able to get into the Avatar universe, which is why I'm not surprised this one didn't do it for me. If you're a fan of these, though, I think you'll definitely like this one. And hey, that's okay. Alrighty, Jason Statham is my guilty pleasure actor through and through. I love The Meg. I love The Meg 2. I love Transporter. I love everything this man does. He's such a treat. I love to watch him just beat people up. The Working Man is a fun movie. Is it a good movie? Oh my God, absolutely not. Is it a stupid movie? 100%. Will I cover it on the channel? I don't know, maybe. But if I do, I can tell you right now, so bad it's good. Simple premise. Guy who used to be an action, military man as always, working for construction. Girl gets kidnapped. He goes and beats some people up. Shoots them, tricks them, beats them up some more. Boom, saves the day. Hey, generic action movie? Absolutely, but it's Jason Statham, so I'm always going to enjoy it. And for me, that makes it a fun movie. Okay, then we have Black Bag. This movie I feel like fell under the radar for a few people. I like this movie a lot. I think, again, in line with The Amateur and how I was kind of talking about the Bourne movies, I think Black Bag actually takes this premise of a couple that works at, these secret government agencies, and it tells a story about them being pitted against each other. Michael Fassbender's incredible in it. Pierce Brosnan is in it. I think it's just a really good movie that did something in this genre of espionage and spy movies that I hadn't personally really seen before. And then they executed it in a way that kept me engaged and being like, well, who is it? What's going on here? Who is the bad guy? And if I'm sitting there personally and I'm questioning everything and wondering things and, not being able to figure it out, that makes the movie even more enjoyable for me. Not to say that figuring out a twist in a movie isn't necessarily a bad thing and doesn't necessarily ruin the movie, but Black Bag just did it in a way that I really felt was just like very, very well done. And I think personally, it's just one of the best movies of the year for me. Then we have Companion, which asks the question, what if in the future we had AI sex robots and then you tried to frame one of them for murder so you can make a lot of money? Answer is, it'd be pretty fun. Be pretty fun to watch that. Be pretty fun to watch a lot of stupid people try to pull off something that doesn't make a lot of sense and would never work, and then see them, kind of fumble their way through it as she becomes more aware of what's going on. I think Companion's a fun movie. I think it's kind of sold as like a horror movie, but I think it's just a straight up comedy, in my opinion. It's not bad by any stretch. It's definitely a fun movie. Then we have a horror movie, an Icelandic horror movie called The Damned. This movie's awesome. I have recommended it to a lot of my horror friends. I will say it's a slow burn. It's on Hulu right now in America. It's one of those psychological slow burn horror movies. You question what's real. You question what's really going on. You get some answers at the end. And personally, I love the way it plays out. I love the score. The cinematography is gorgeous. The premise is so simple, but yet so intriguing. It keeps you wondering what's real and what's not. I think The Damned is probably my favorite horror movie next to Weapons of the year. I think it does a lot of things right, and I just really loved almost every single second of it. And I'm really glad I got a chance to see it at a small screening, and it was a great fucking time. Another great fucking time was Marty Supreme. I just recently saw it's the last movie of the year that I'm seeing, so it's still really fresh in my brain. So it's going to be at the bottom of my great list in that way because it's still kind of fresh, but it's exactly what people have been saying about it. It's a fun movie. Timothée Chalamet is a fucking incredible actor at only 30 years old. The dude has so many great roles under his belt. He's really good in this. I love the premise of a guy wants to be the best at something. What does that look like when that thing is ping pong? Well, the answer is it's a pretty fun and great movie. Worth checking out. I don't have a lot to say about it because it's still really fresh, like I said, but overall, really solid movie. Another kind of fun action movie that I enjoyed was this movie Fight or Flight with Josh Hartnett, who is in one of my favorite movies of all time, Black Hawk Down. This is what if Bullet Train, but on an airplane? What if everybody was trying to kill you, but on an airplane? And the answer is it's really fun. It's a fun, 90-minute ride of people killing each other on an airplane. And I think, it's a fun setting. Airplane kind of raises the stakes because if you blow up an airplane or if you fall out of an airplane, you're dead. I mean, granted, if you fall out of a bullet train, you're also probably dead. But, now we just need one on a boat. And we'll have the trilogy. We'll have the plane, we'll have the boat, and we'll have an airplane. And that's all you really need. So if somebody wants to make that on a boat, I'll probably watch it. Next up is Riff Raff, a small movie with Bill Murray, Ed Harris, Pete Davidson. I really thought this movie was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I had no idea what it was going to be about when I went in, but I was like, it's like a crime boss retired with a new kid. His other kid's kind of in trouble, and they go to hide out, and this other mob guy is looking for him, and what does that look like? It's pretty fun, and Jennifer Coolidge is in this, and I should have said this when I talked about Minecraft movie. Jennifer Coolidge is a fucking treat to humankind. She's so funny in the Minecraft movie, and probably my favorite part of that. She's also great in Riff Raff. This is just a nice little fun, smaller movie of the year that I think really did a good job and is executed pretty fun. And also, that's kind of the case with The Monkey. I think it's a fun movie. It's very, very gory. It's Osgood Perkins, way better than Keeper. Not nearly as good as Longlegs, in my opinion. But I think for a Stephen King adaptation about a monkey that when you wind it up, something bad happens and somebody dies, it's very Final Destination-esque, which you'll notice I didn't see Final Destination Bloodlines. I don't really like those movies. They make me very uncomfortable, and you might be like, well, that's the point, and you're a wimp. Yeah, you're right. I am a wimp. I don't like that. And that is the point of those movies, is to make you uncomfortable. But I don't like them. I never got behind them. The Monkey is kind of similar. I think it's fun. I don't think it's necessarily a good movie, but I definitely had fun with it because it's more playing those deaths off in a comedic way, where Final Destination, in my opinion, is just like, what if we made you scared of everything? And I don't want to be scared of everything. I want to be able to ride roller coasters, and maybe one day I want to get in a tanning bed. Who knows? And then we have another generic action movie this year. There's a lot of them, with Love Hurts, which is another guy used to work for an agency, army veteran. He's really good at beating people up. He's trying to live a normal life. That normal life doesn't work out, and somebody comes and finds him. This one was probably the weakest out of them all. I think Nobody 2 was more fun. I think The Working Man was more fun. I think this one just didn't quite scratch that action itch that my two brain cells competing for third place enjoy. I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I think it's just simply fine. Next up is Violent Ends. I really liked this movie. I didn't watch a trailer going into it. I just read the synopsis, saw that it was Billy Magnussen, who I'm a huge fan of, and was like, yeah, I'll watch this. And it's about a family that is divided, and each section of the family controls a drug trade in Arkansas. And what happens when that starts to implode, because one of the people that's in the family, their fiance gets killed in the crossfire, and that person slowly starts to unravel and decides to take matters into his own hands. And what does that look like? The answer is a really, really good, grounded, gritty drama action about a family divided and what one man will do to show that he doesn't want to be like his family, but maybe by doing that, he is like his family. And it just hit every story beat that I wanted. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really well executed. And overall, it just ended up being one of my surprise favorite movies of the entire year. Next up, Den of Thieves 2. I didn't like this movie. I didn't like the first Den of Thieves that much. I know a lot of people do. I don't know what it is. I wanted to, and I want to like these movies, but I don't know. I feel like it lost a lot of the groundedness of the first one. And I mean, I'm not even the biggest fan of that one, but just this idea that Gerard Butler's chasing mini Ice Cube, crushed ice across the continent, like into Europe to do a jewelry heist and stuff. It just, I don't know. It just didn't quite do it for me. But I think that these movies definitely do have an audience of people that like these style of like criminal organization heist movies. But I don't know, maybe I just didn't quite do it for me. Then we have In the Lost Lands, the other Dave Bautista movie that came out this year that was bad. It's bad. It's really bad. I don't even know if I'd consider it fun. I would need to watch it again because it looks like the whole thing was filmed in front of a green screen because it's the guy who did Resident Evil, so I didn't expect much. He also did Monster Hunter, which I covered, and that movie wasn't good. But when you only put your wife in movies, I don't know if that always works, in my opinion. I think some of the Resident Evil movies are good, but I think most of them are not that good. In this movie, I need to cover because I need to know if it's so bad it's good or if it's just plain garbage. But I have a feeling I know where it might end up. So we'll just have to see. I'll have to see if I get to that this year. Okay, next up, Phoenician Scheme. I am a massive Wes Anderson fan. He's one of my favorite directors. I love everything he's ever made. I think Benicio del Toro and Michael Cera do a fantastic job in this movie. It's always fun to see a bunch of other actors and actresses show up in these movies, and you know that they're not getting paid a lot because these movies are not made for very much, and a lot of people will take pay cuts just to be in these movies. And I think that really says a lot about Wes Anderson as a director and these movies as a whole. Again, I think this is an acquired taste when it comes to movies because they kind of feel like you're watching a stage play in a lot of ways, and I personally really like that element. A lot of the sets feel very constructed around the stage play aspect, but overall it's just a phenomenal movie from a phenomenal director with a phenomenal cast, and I really, really, really enjoyed this one this year. Another movie I really enjoyed that really fucked me up was Warfare. It's not quite great. There we get over. What are you doing? Get in. There we go. Warfare is a true account from Ray Mendoza, a Navy SEAL who teamed up with Alex Garland for this A24 film with Will Poulter and Joseph Quinn and a few other big names that you might recognize, about what this platoon of, or these squads really, of Navy SEALs with a couple Marines in there, what they went through in 2006 while trying to get a CASEVAC. And as somebody who served in the Marine Corps for 7 years, I watched this movie with tears running down my face because it's one of the, if not the most realistic version and telling of what these guys go through, with even down to just like the speech, the acronyms, the nothing happening but waiting for something to happen moments, where there's long like periods where they're just sitting around waiting and kind of, nothing is really unfolding. It's not your typical war action movie where it's nonstop fights. You do get some gunfights in it a little bit, some firefights that happen, but as somebody who served and trained for this kind of stuff, it just really hit close to home. And I think it's on borderline great for me, but it not quite there in terms of a movie, but in terms of a story and whatnot, absolutely phenomenal. It's a big year for Pedro Pascal because we have this movie called Freaky Tales. Now, this is from the directors that did Captain Marvel, the first Brie Larson Captain Marvel movie. It was bad. I didn't like it very much. It's like 3 separate stories that connect, but there's like this supernatural kind of element to it, as well as just like some really weird plot devices and plot points that I just didn't think landed very well. Not much to say about it. I wasn't a big fan. And speaking of not being a big fan, Flight Risk. I fucking hated this movie. This was stupid. What if you were on a plane carrying a prisoner and the pilot was a hitman and it was Mark Wahlberg wearing a toupee? The answer is Mel Gibson doesn't know how to make a good movie anymore, in my opinion. Or maybe he never did. I'm not sure. But I didn't like this. I think that the humor doesn't mix with the action. I think Mark Wahlberg is fucking awful in this movie. Topher Grace is fine. But ultimately, yeah, this movie, I'm not a fan. Now, earlier, I mentioned low-budget movies making it into the theater. And that brings us to Primitive War. This movie is based off a book about Vietnam soldiers fighting dinosaurs that came through a portal into Vietnam. I mean, no, that's pretty much it. What if dinosaurs were in Vietnam and a bunch of Green Berets and stuff and had to fight them? Yeah, it's pretty fun. It was made for $7 million, which is why I'm like, yeah, Wrecker, what were you doing? Because here's an Australian movie for $7 million that was really fun. I actually watched this with another Marine Corps buddy of mine, and we both had a great time. We were laughing, we were poking fun at it. We were like, hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's does it look great? Nah, not really. Do the dinosaurs look better than they do in Jurassic World? Nah, not even close. Is it more fun than Jurassic World? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I stand by that, and I'll die on that hill. This movie was somehow more fun. This $7 million dinosaur movie was somehow more fun than a $250 million dinosaur movie. Don't ask me how. That's just my opinion. And yeah, I really liked it, and it's kind of fun. Another movie that I really like that's kind of fun is Presence. I liked this a lot. I originally had it in my great category. I knocked it down a little bit because I don't think it has the rewatchability that it would need to get it up there, because I would rewatch any of these movies up here in great, without a doubt. But Presence is one of those that once you know the twist, once you know the spoiler, it kind of isn't something you'd really want to watch again. First time I saw this, I did a back-to-back. I saw Flight Risk first and then went into Presence. And seeing Flight Risk first really made Presence stand out to me because it gave me chills at times. It's basically it's a haunting of a house told from the perspective of the ghost. And I think that's a really interesting concept. And I was wondering how they were going to pull it off. And they did a really good job. And if you don't know anything about this movie yet, but that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to watch it, because I think that the ending, if you can avoid the spoiler, I think you might be like, oh my God, okay, yeah, that's cool. Or you might be like some of the other people I've heard and be like, well, I saw that coming. And hey, that's cool. I didn't see it coming. So for me, had a pretty powerful ending, in my opinion. And that brings us to the last movie on this list. This doesn't look like 75, but I counted, and it is. If you want to double check my math, you can. Fantastic Four. I don't know, man. Fun, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to be a Marvel hater, because I feel like that's just jumping on a bandwagon, because I do like Marvel movies, and I do like DC movies, and I like superhero movies. I like superhero TV shows. I like comics. I like all of that. But it just feels like, again, we're in this spot with Marvel where they're backpedaling because of the Kang stuff with Jonathan Majors and kind of pulling out of that and having all of these TV shows, and they really went for quantity over quality. And like, there's so many characters that I know we're not going to see. Like, I'm a big fan of Moon Knight. I know we're never going to see Moon Knight again. We're never going to see She-Hulk again, whether you're a fan of her or not. And it just makes you really wonder what the direction of any of this was. And in not knowing the direction made it really hard for me to be invested in anything. And Fantastic Four, at the very least, did something a little different by putting it in an alternate dimension or multiverse and set it in like a retro futuristic 60s. And we didn't have to worry about seeing the Fantastic Four origin. But I think overall, yeah, just, I don't know, wasn't what I was hoping, and it just kind of fell a little flat. It was fun, but it just, I don't know, it could have been a lot better in my opinion. And yeah, that's where I'll leave that one. And that brings us to the end of the ranking. So real quick, I think actually these are probably in order of how I liked them. I think that this would be my top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. It's my top 18 up here, in my opinion. So if there's a movie you'd like to see me cover on this channel because it might be so bad it's good, or just plain garbage, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to cover that from you. Don't forget to check out my last review video of 2025 with Playdate. And with all of that, I will see you next time.